Hello, my fellow Ripplers. This is Chris Miles, your cash flow expert and anti-financial advisor. Welcome to our show that's for you, those of you that work so hard for your money. You want your money to start working harder for you right now. You want that freedom and cash flow today, not 30 or 40 years from now, but you want it right now. So you can live that life that you love with those that you love. And guys, it's not just about getting rich, is it? It's about living a rich life, because as you're blessed financially, you have a greater capacity to bless the lives of others. And that is what it means to create a ripple effect and to be a Rippler. Thank you so much for tuning in, and shout out to you guys, especially those of you guys have been reaching out, asking questions. Some of you you've even been hiring us as consultants, but you guys have been taking action on the stuff that we talk about. And guys, that's the whole reason I'm here, because I'm here to create a ripple effect through you. And if it weren't for you guys doing something, this would be a total waste for me. So I appreciate you guys changing your own lives and doing things to actually bless the lives of others as well. Hey, as a reminder, be sure, go to, if you haven't done this already, if you're already watching our YouTube channel, great, but also go to Apple Podcast, subscribe, and then also leave us a review if you love it. Now, if you hate us, don't leave us a review. I mean, just leave us alone. But if you actually like this, or you have a favorite episode, review it, rate it, and leave some kind words. We'd really appreciate it, because this is the ripple effect we're trying to create. So thank you so much.
Chris Miles was able to retire twice by the time he was 39 years old. But he's not content to just enjoy his own financial freedom and peace of mind. Chris wants you to have your own ripple effect so you can live free today. He's not the financial advisor you expected. He's the anti-financial advisor you deserve. He's jumping behind the mic right now, ready to make waves. Here's Chris Miles.
All right, guys. So I brought out a special guest today. I have Dr. Paul Reed with us out of my home state, or pretty much in my home area of Oregon there. Now, one thing interesting with Paul, like Paul has worked with like many chiropractors. I know there's several chiropractors. Shout out to you guys as well that have been following us lately. I know many of you guys have been following some of our mutual friends like Dr. Ed Osborne or Ryan Doyle and people like that. But something to know about Paul here that's pretty incredible. One, I mean, not only is he like a serial entrepreneur, but he's like a faith-based entrepreneur. He's a speaker, author, coach. I mean, a father. I mean, the guy is just an amazing guy. He also is, I mean, he's not only just created businesses, but he's actually started 8 businesses exceeding $5 million in revenue annually. So really excited to be able to talk with him, not just about his successes, but also about the things that have led to that success. Because I think you'll find out, Tony Robbins says this, that success leaves clues. There's always a pattern. So I want to really dig in that pattern with Paul today. So Paul, on that note, welcome to our show.
Hey, Chris, super excited to be here. Thank you for allowing me to be on and be able to contribute to your tribe. I know that you have a huge following that's you're supporting and helping them live their best lives. And I know you're the cash flow guy, so it's helping them, which gives us all freedom, right? I heard once from a financial guy who said that a lot of people think that cash is king, which is important. He goes, but cash flow is a queen, and the king likes to sleep with the queen. So, so cash flow is if not more important than cash. So
it's true, right? It's just like everything. I mean, even I know you're in the health industry as well. I mean, it's about flow, isn't it? Like whatever flows brings life. Water flows brings life. Blood flow brings life, and money flow is no different, is it?
Yep. Movement is life. Got to move. And so that's exactly right. So movement is flow. Yeah. So thank you.
Well, give us more about your story and just what led you to where you are today.
Man, I, as you mentioned, I'm a chiropractor by day, coach, leader by night, I guess.
Kind of like Batman,
I felt a call, right? I felt a calling when I was a little dude. Got my first adjustment when I was 8th grade. And at that moment, those in the chiropractic understand that connects the man, the physical with man, the spiritual. And I had that adjustment, and I'm like, I want to do this when I grow up. And from that point forward was like, that was my marching orders when my sports career was done. I'm like, I'm going to be a chiropractor. I want to come back to my community and help people experience what I experienced from that time forward. So here we are almost, I'm in my 25th year. So I opened several clinics, and as you briefly mentioned in the intro, serial entrepreneur, got, coffee shop and some property development and coaching business, and was blessed to be able to exit from the practices by selling them to a group here a few years back. And now following my heart, the book Halftime, like moving from success to significance. The second half 3 years, I'm 51, trying to figure out what the second half of life looks like and how I'm going to serve. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, and you don't often hear people that will go into like chiropractic and then they'll also launch into other businesses too. So that's kind of unique, I've noticed in that industry.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a blessing and a curse to feel called to do lots of other stuff, right? Because
Uh-huh.
it's just a limitation of time and matter and ability to focus. I think, as your listeners, one thing that just came to mind right then is a lot of people want to jump into a different space to create some of that cash flow without having their first business be stable. And a lot of my guys I coach like, hey, I want a second source of income. Like, that is fantastic and great, and I think you should do it, but you have to have your systems and process in your first one
Yes.
in order before you jump into something else. Otherwise, you're going to dilute that one, and it's going to compromise
Yep.
its cash flow, right? And then you're moving nowhere. So really make sure that your a product or your a passion is dialed and set before you jump ship and try and start something else.
Amen to that. Yeah. I made that same mistake in 2008 when the recession was hitting hard. I'm like, I'd have multiple streams of income. And so I had 5 different business streams I was doing. And I noticed that overall my income dropped
Mm,
from what it was when I didn't have all the streams because I've been basically cannibalizing the other income streams to try
yeah.
to focus on whatever. I'm like a sprinkler versus a fire hose.
Yeah.
And once I cut off 3 of those streams, I just focused on 2. Then also my overall
Boom.
income shot up.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's energy, right? Energy is everything.
Yeah.
And if we dilute that energy across multiple platforms, it has to give somewhere. So something's not getting the attention or the energy that it needs to keep it doing what it's supposed to be doing. So yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you feel is kind of your calling now? I mean, now you're moving to that second half, right?
I really feel led right now. I'm spinning my heart for actually about, man, almost in my 7th year of this. And I'm just the last couple of years taking action on it, but to support men. I've started a Christian men's coaching mentorship program. And I think that's really kind of my heart to help them course correct and pivot and really be the leaders within themselves first and foremost, and then their family, and then their communities / business, whatever it might be. But I think my next, or I know my next thing is working on that. And then I got a book I'm working on as well. So I'm going to bigger impact, right? So for the kingdom. So
Yeah. What kind of problem are you seeing among men right now? Like what's really inspiring that? Like what are you seeing that's a trend? Because I know I've seen some things that's kind of concerning.
it really is. I think the masculinity is going away. I think leadership is going away. Fear. They're filled with fear and complacency, or apathy, I guess is another way to describe it. And so
Mm,
really pouring into them to help them, strengthen who they feel that they are as a man of God, and then acting on their purpose. Like, I think there's just too many men that are just, I like to use the rhino and a cow. I don't know if you've ever read any Alexander's books, but like they're the cow. They're just like in the pasture chewing on their cud, really not taking responsibility for their thoughts or
mhm.
their actions or their families or their finances, and living a compromised life and really not filling the promised land that they're supposed to have. So
Absolutely. They're just kind of existing, right? Just
yeah,
surviving.
instead of thriving like we're called to. So
Yeah, exactly. Now, I know masculinity has kind of been under attack for many years, right? It's almost swung the pendulum too far the other direction.
100%.
How would you define masculinity? Because I know some people see it as a negative term, but I know it could also be a positive one too.
Yeah, I think, in the pendulum, you're right. It completely went the other way from this domineering thing to, and I think masculinity is just is confidence, right? It's not
Mhm.
necessarily like I'm a bully or
Yeah,
I'm going to run over people, but it's a confidence and a posture and a communication. It's a leadership, right? We're called to lead.
yeah,
It's biblical. And if we're not fulfilling God's call or promise for us as men. And so I think there's definitely balance, but if you look at Jesus, he wasn't a bully, right? He was
hmm,
masculine. He was a leader. And he led by example. And I think enough men right now that's the other thing, is they're not leading by example for themselves or for their families. Most importantly, I see broken families and broken kids, and which just leads to a broken future. And so it starts with fixing yourself first. And that's really want to help dudes fix themselves so that they can be
yeah.
the example that they're supposed to be. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. You just brought that up because just this morning, one of my clients, he's out in South Carolina. He's a minister, and he actually has shared. He said, Jesus wasn't always nice. Like
Right.
there's times Jesus had to say to Peter, "Hey, get back, Satan! Like you're trying to tell me not to offer myself as a sacrifice. I need you to get back because that
Yeah.
temptation sucks."
Yeah. Yeah.
And just, times he'd call people out. He's like, listen, you're trying to accuse my mother and of my origins and everything else. Like, hey, you know what, you
Stand down.
guys, you're spawn of Satan, I mean,
Yes.
he called them out. Like there's a balance there, right? It wasn't like you're
100%.
just a pushover, but at the same time, you're not just always pushing others over either, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And I think it's, in life, there's results or there's consequences.
Mhm.
And I think most men are just accepting the consequence instead of creating the life they want and the results that they want from their actions and their habits. We talked about habits before we jumped on the call, and really each and everything that we do every day is building us for tomorrow or the next second or the next minute, and choosing to do the right thing. It's not always going to work out the way that you want. That's life. Life is hard. I just did a post today. Choose your hard. Like what hard do you want? Like, the quote that I posted said, marriage is hard, divorce is hard, choose your hard. Like, choose what you want, and accept that hard, and then do what it has to take to accomplish it. So
Absolutely. So what are those success habits? Like, what do they look like for people?
Success, I think, a lot of people have a misconception of success. I mean, success in the day in and day out is boring, right? It's a rhythm, it's a routine, it's getting in a pattern of doing the things that need to be done, the consistent, persistent pursuit of your desired state. Like, and success to you and me might be different than some of your listeners, every one of your listeners, right? And so finding out first and foremost, defining what success is for you, because it might not necessarily be like you opened with millions in a bank account. It might be your cash flow to give you the freedom to do the thing that you want to do, and having that cash flow for 100 years or however long. So first defining it, and then just the consistent, persistent pursuit of that thing, and not giving up on it. Finding your rhythm, finding your routines, each and every day that move you a little bit closer. If you can get 1% closer to your desired state each and every day, you're going to end up there. It might not be on your timing, it might be on God's timing, right? Like, we all want it tomorrow or the next day, and it might be a year or 10 years from now. You're in a season of preparation, but you have to do the work in that preparation to get you to where you want to go. And so I think it's, again, there's a misconception of success. If you ask any person that's been successful on any level, at a high level, they'll tell you that it's boring and it's work, right? They get up the same day, they do the same thing over and over and over again until they get their desired result. And unfortunately, a lot of people get, because I don't know where it switched, but we've become a generation or society, not necessarily a generation of like immediate gratification, instead of knowing like, dude, like, well, you're a perfect example, right? You picked up running marathons. Like, you couldn't the first day, like, hey, I'm going to change and start running a marathon and go run a marathon. Like, no, it took weeks and months to prep to run that distance. And so people forget like the work that it takes day in and day out to get you to that desired state. So
it's funny that you say it's like, success is boring, right? Because there's a phrase I often say on this show regarding investing, is that boring is sexy.
Yeah, it is, right? It really is.
It really does. Like, and that's one thing I learned, because a lot of times, at least with investing, people always want to go for the bright, shiny objects, the stuff that's high risk. But we're like, no, after the last recession, and what I've learned as an investor is, no, it's actually the stuff that's boring, the stuff that most people ignore. Even the people that are the most successful investors will do this thing that they've done day in and day out. They know it like the back of their hand, and that's why it works. That's why they make money, versus the people that just are flash in the pan type of people, right?
Yeah. Again, it's the consistent, persistent, right? Find that mechanism that works and don't change it. That's the other thing, is a lot of people try and recreate the wheel, which there's always new things being created, right? But again, success leaves clues, like you opened with Tony Robbins, right? Like, just find the patterns and model those patterns, and continue to chase it. I mean, and we all did that. Like, we end up becoming those that we're closest with, right? What do they say? Like 7 people within your reach, you adopt and pick up those habits. Those folks, find somebody in your tribe that is doing what you want to do, or has become what you want to become, and start to model and follow their habits. Because those habits leave clues.
That's sure. So true. So what are some of these habits that someone can start doing right now that's the boring stuff? Like, what's the boring stuff that we could be doing consistently that could create great results in their life?
I personally think, honestly, that some sort of physical challenge daily, some fitness, right? I think fitness is the ultimate discipline. I think it's the portal, personally, from my experience. I think it's the portal to success or discipline in other areas, mentally, spiritually, emotionally. I think if you challenge yourself consistently, within your fitness component, like it's gonna open up doors, to other areas of success. I think that, a lot of people unfortunately ignore that, and that's why our health is where it's at, and
Yeah.
worldwide. And I think success too. Like if it's a direct your ability to commit to something and do it day in and day out when it's no fun, when it stinks, when it hurts, when it's cold out, when it's wet out, whatever it might be,
Hmm.
and just doing it and pushing through that discomfort, right? Embracing the suck, I like to say. Like when
Uh-huh.
you embrace the suck, like there's rewards on the other side. And again, it might not be, um, in your time frame, but you're being prepared for when your number gets called, right? And I think that's, approaching life like a sport, even though if you're not an athlete, and prepping yourself for when your opportunity knocks, that you're ready to be able to step into that greatness, is key. So,
That's a really interesting perspective because I know there's a lot of people that many times will say like, "Oh, it's the spiritual discipline, the internal discipline that leads to the other disciplines." But how many times have we seen those same people, sitting there pre-diabetic or even diabetic,
yeah,
overweight, dying early of heart attacks and things like that? Because
yeah,
just because you have spiritual discipline doesn't mean you have discipline in other areas of your life.
yeah,
Where you said, "Hey, fitness is more almost like that gateway drug to creating
yeah,
discipline to the other paths as well." And
yeah.
I'd never considered that before, but I've seen that true in my own experience too. I can't say that's 100% of the time, but I know
Yeah.
that for me, it actually that did open up that path to doing other things too.
Yeah, and if we're thinking selfless, Chris, if we're
Mhm,
thinking about our families and about our kids or grandkids as
mhm.
kids, our future, right? We want to create, a generational impact. Like I had a mentor 20 years ago tell me, you're no good to anybody if you're sick or dead.
That's right.
God can't use you the way He wants to use you. You can't benefit yourself. You can't benefit your family. And so I think, and that's really where that stems from for me. Like if you take care of you and do you the way that you were designed to do you, then it opens up all these other avenues and portals for you to be able to bless others. And so I
So
think, yeah,
true.
physical fitness needs to be taking care of your temples. Got to be top
Yeah.
priority for people.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, the body really is a vessel for you to
Yeah,
fulfill your purpose, do God's work, and really
yeah.
make, and create more. You're meant to be a creator, not just a
100%.
consumer of.
God was a creator, right? And we're created in the image of
Yeah,
God. So you are a creator. Absolutely. Love that.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and that thing I've seen too in my own experience, even with money, is that so many people that do ignore health. I knew somebody had millions of dollars. His health went down the tube. I mean, and this guy was now he was disciplined everywhere else, right? He was a disciplined studier and reader, which I think is also important too. And
Mm-hmm.
he was spiritually studying as well and trying to act on those things. But the one place he wasn't doing well was in his fitness side. And
Yeah.
that ironically, he was put in the hospital, almost died, lost all of his wealth, lost just about everything because that wasn't in place too. So it's
I
interesting you
was,
say that
I
because it
was,
can cost in so many different areas.
well, your health, they say that's the number one reason for bankruptcy, right?
Yeah.
Is your lack of health. And another quote or saying I heard before is people spend generations gaining their wealth and they spend their wealth to regain their health. And
Yeah.
so, like, if you'd taken care of your health and been responsible, now granted, there's stuff that happens that, unexpectedly, but like if you do your responsibility to do your best, it's going to give you a higher opportunity to not have to be in that situation. So,
Oh, I
yeah,
agree.
yeah,
Now, I want to take a quick break right here and just
yeah,
ask you, like, I know you put on events, right? I know you
I
just did
do.
one in Boise here recently,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Tell us more about what kind of events and things you're putting on right now.
That's the event is specific to the chiropractic profession. And so it's,
Mhm.
I bring in, again, feeling called into this profession, which I know there's a lot of chiropractors who are called, but I literally on my
Yeah.
heart at that instant when I got my first adjustment, um, felt that, didn't really know what it meant at the time, but I knew I would be leading in the profession. And so, yeah, that seminar ChiroFest was stimulated. This was our 13th or 14th year, this last 13. I think
Mhm.
this was year 13, this past year. And our tagline is honor the past, preserve the future.
Yeah.
And really, it's a selfish ambition. I want, the chiropractic that I know and live and practice, to be around for my kids so that they can experience, health the way that I believe health was supposed to be, experienced for people. And yeah, so that event, is a passion of mine, just to,
Yeah.
keep chiropractors on purpose, on point, and serving their communities the way that they're supposed to.
They need to be. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I got a huge blessing benefit from chiropractic over the years. And in fact, a
Yeah.
lot of my health is because of what I've done in chiropractic and
Awesome.
all the treatments I've received.
That's awesome. Yeah.
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 And
That's
now what
the
about
main
with
event.
men?
What's
Oh,
that?
sorry, say that again.
No, that's the main event right now that I'm doing. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And what about with the men? Like I know like people even outside chiropractic, you're doing things with them as well, right?
Yep. And so so the mentorship within my Unstoppable Man group, it's we got people in the marketing space, real estate space, mortgage space. And so again, it's just really helping men work on themselves so that they can be the leader. You know, we work on what I call our foundational 5: your faith, your family, your fitness, finances, and then fun.
Yeah.
And so really each week we have an accountability group. Each week they score themselves on that foundational 5, where they're at, how much they did the previous week. Then we do, course correction activities and have a lesson every week that we talk about. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And one thing I've noticed about you, like you're not like overly machismo, right? Like I know there's some other men groups, some, friends, probably mutual friends of ours even,
Yeah.
that will put on like men's groups. And it's almost like, it's like ultra, like in your face, almost kind of a little bit brash. If,
Yeah.
I mean, and that's their thing. That's great. But,
Yeah.
I was even seeing the guy that was wearing a t-shirt of one of those groups just at the gym today. And I'm like, is this guy happy? Because I can't really tell. I'm like, I'm trying to see, because I just know the culture is like, it's almost like I got to get angry about everything, and to
Yeah.
me, that's not masculinity necessarily. But again, I have a little feminine, masculine type balance in myself. I'm not machismo either.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about that exactly?
I'm a little bit the same way. And I'm all for, hyper discipline, right? Pushing
Uh-huh.
yourself and getting uncomfortable. Like we said earlier, embracing the suck through some physical challenges,
Yeah.
but being angry and ticked off all the time doesn't benefit yourself, long term, or anybody around you. And so I think there's definitely a balance of like, being disciplined, being a charger, being, masculine, but not like, yeah, that's just my experience. I had a college football coach that was that way. Like he'd grab you by the face mask and call you a bunch of names and shake you and get you out there. And I mean, that might motivate some people, but I don't think that it motivates the masses. Like occasionally we need a good wake up call, like a good kick in the
Uh-huh.
rear,
Yeah.
but on the daily, I don't think that's what somebody needs to stretch themselves to be great.
Right.
I think just challenging people to go a little bit deeper than they are right now and work a little bit harder. You can do that without, getting up in somebody's grill and calling them names and whatever else that's going on. So,
But I thought that was like the best way to do things. It's just,
yeah.
just destroy them. And that's how you build them up, right? You just tear them down. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe. so, so oh,
Awesome.
yeah.
And what's like a good website if people want to follow you or social media, or what's the best way to do that?
Awesome. So yeah, my website, Chris, is drpaulreed.com. Simple,
Mhm.
easy, just my name, REED. And then Insta is at drpaul.com, and Facebook is my professional page is Dr. Paul Reed. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And one last question I want to ask you
Yes,
that I think is
sir.
kind of like I like to call it the multi-million-dollar question, because it's probably better than million, right? But if you're give one piece of advice, whether it's men or women on this show, right? That anybody, like what's that piece of advice that you would give right now for anybody who wants to see more in their life, have more extraordinary results, see more success?
I think first and foremost, get deeper in your walk, in your faith. I think that will open up and expose you opportunities that you're not necessarily seeing, and knowing that you're being prepared. But then I think secondly, like somebody asked me this recently on the interview, what would I tell my, previous self? And I think be more confident and certain in your abilities. I think all of us, it's a rarity that somebody is 1,000% confident in who they are and the impact that they're going to have. We all have that little monkey in our ear that's, making us question ourselves. And I think if I was, that's the one thing that I would tell people is if you're certain on where you're going and God's calling your life, just keep acting and knowing that you're doing the right thing. So,
Love it, man. Dr. Paul, this has been awesome. Really appreciate your time and your generosity.
yeah.
And I've learned a lot just
Thank you,
just for
Chris.
the few minutes we've been here. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me on, man. I appreciate it.
You bet. Hey, everybody else, you heard it here. I mean, obviously, the success is from doing things that are boring, right? Boring is what leads to more success.
Yeah.
Those mundane, boring, little bit of suck that you got to do in your life. But that's what actually creates those instant results. What some people might see as instant results, but As I like to quote from another book, some people would say, it only took me 10 years to become an overnight success, right? And that's what it is. It's just doing the boring, mundane things that you never think other people do that you're doing. So the question is, are you just going to be a hearer of the word? Or are you going to be a doer as well? That's what I challenge you guys to do, is to be a doer and make these things start to really happen and manifest in your life. Go and make it a wonderful, prosperous week. We'll see you later.